Did you know that rejection isn't an interaction? Hi, my name is Allison, and these are my adventures on the platform formerly known as Twitter. I have quite an adventure for you today. You really have to be quite the spelunker of the absurd to continue to do the kind of work that I do. But I do it for you because I appreciate you guys, and I want you to know that there is some very dark places of abject stupidity out there. This was a tweet by Unladylike. Death to misogyny. I mean, personally, playing the victim seems to be a pretty standard ladylike trope, but who am I? Who am I to call out hypocrisy? I only do it weekly. These incel men base their opinion of women off of lack of experience with women. Meanwhile, feminist women base their perspective off of their shared experience. Now, let's set aside that the logistics of this are absurd. Incels have experience with female relatives, with fellow female classmates that they've probably had to interact with, female coworkers, bystanders who are female. I mean, there's a lot of female interaction beyond simply romantic, relationship-based. And I should take these off, because I usually do for this, but I apologize for having them on. Now, setting that aside, what incels are describing is that women reject them. You don't need to have romantic experience with women to know that you're being rejected by a woman. And it's not necessary. I mean, really, the whole you can't get laid shaming doesn't really work to deny the idea that incels can recognize that they're being rejected or experience rejection. It's because basically they're saying we can't get laid, and you're saying you can't get laid, therefore you can't speak on the experience of not getting laid and why. I think the logic is a little weak, but that never stops a feminist from trying, from forcing weak logic on everyone. In response to that, I say, the obvious, can't they just listen to what women say online? Robert Brown, who is not our protagonist, by the way, he's just someone trying to bring sense to a senseless world, says the following. Apparently, the other person thinks rejection by women does not qualify as experience with women. Now, this is a very simple statement. Okay? If you go up to a woman and she rejects you, you may not have experience with being in a relationship with a woman, but you do have experience about being rejected. And presumably, you can know that you are thus a rejected man. So there is information being conveyed here. Miss Shivamam says, being turned down for a job does not qualify you as experience on that job. Yeah, but that's not what they're saying. We're not saying that this gives incels experience with the relationship, which would be the equivalent of the job in this scenario. We're saying it gives incels experience with being rejected from jobs, right? Which was being rejected from a relationship. Siobhan says, interaction with an interviewer isn't experience with the job. What do you do with such reckless disregard for anything resembling reality? Okay. I respond with, you're following your analogy to a stupid place. You understand that getting to the point of being rejected requires interacting with women, correct? Siobhan says, it's Robert's analogy, not mine. Okay. All right. This is what I mean by reckless inability to recognize reality. Siobhan says it's Robert's analogy, and yet she is the one who made it. Did Robert somehow get in your brain and use his patriarchal thrall to force you to write that? These are the hoof prints of some kind of pathology. All right. Getting rejected by women, this is Siobhan again, doesn't require interaction with the woman. She sees you, she hears you, she rejects you. That's not interaction. That's assessment and rejection. So now an interaction with a woman only happens when she decides it does. What an incredible level of entitled aristocracy. Like what level of entitled aristocracy are we at now? The Lord doesn't interact with the peasant, even when the Lord is rejecting the peasant, until the Lord deems that he has interacted with the peasant. Therefore, shut up. So Robert Brown, again trying to bring sense to a senseless world, says, I see now what you're saying. Any man with anything negative to say about a woman just doesn't know us well enough. The experienced man love and understand me and my female friends. I think more like she rejects a man, he doesn't exist, his experience doesn't exist, and the rejection doesn't exist because the man doesn't exist. Siobhan says, I am not saying that. No, you are. You're just not acknowledging you are. I'm saying, again, rejection by is not interaction with. If you get rejected by a job, that doesn't mean you've interacted with anybody at that job, not even the interviewer who rejected you. Okay. I respond with, ever the optimist me, you realize that there exists an experience outside of women's heads, right? By definition, a man has to interact with a woman or her words to be aware he's been rejected by her. I think I got her. I think I do. Hope springs eternal. Let's see what she says. Siobhan, nope. Her rejecting him doesn't require anything more than her rejecting him. This is because there exists reality outside of his head. Basically, she's just reversed this. Okay, so we got a woman and we got a man. The man approaches the woman, shoots his shot, and she says no. Right? She conveys the information that she has rejected him. But apparently no interaction has taken place because there exists reality outside his head. I basically trapped her in her logic, and she used the no you card because she thought that got her out of the trap. But this isn't an insult. It is pointing out that your logic is flawed. So if there is nothing outside a woman's head, we could equally say there's nothing outside a man's head. So whose head do we base everything on? Right? Usually an interaction requires the interaction of two perspectives. Okay? Man is interested in a relationship, goes up to a woman, says, I am interested in a relationship. She says, no, I am not interested in a relationship with you. Information is conveyed, interactions happen, two perspectives have collided. Okay? You can't get away from that. She's like, oh, you said that there's more in the world outside of a woman's head. That means that if I say that there's more in the world outside of a man's head, that's a rebuttal. It's not. I'm saying that there is both. The woman's experience and the man's experience. That is the nature of interaction. Okay. All right. So I respond with, his perception of her rejection does exist inside his head. Right? This is where you're having a problem. Siobhan says, his perception is his. It isn't part of her experience. Yeah, that exactly. The interaction has taken place. She has had an experience of interacting with a man. He has had an experience of interacting with a woman. Because she rejected him doesn't mean his experience of interaction with a woman goes away, because she is the measurement by which all subjectivity occurs. So I respond, it doesn't matter if it's not part of her existence or experience. Do you think that's all that exists? She interacts with him via rejecting him. He has an experience of a woman rejecting him. Siobhan replies with, when something isn't part of both persons' experience, there is no interaction. When something isn't part of both persons' experience, There is an interaction. So the only interactions that take place, apparently, are interactions in which both parties experience the same thing. Are we not achieving levels of complete destruction of human thought that you could never imagine was possible? You guys wonder how all of the metric tons of crap being pulled out of the government, like, these are the people that the foundation, this is the philosophical foundation, if you even can call it philosophy, of all of the shit you're seeing in the government, in the US federal government. This is where it starts. This is the wellspring. Okay, so I said she has the experience of rejecting him via her actions. He has the experience of being rejected via her actions. And Siobhan says she didn't experience rejection, ergo no interaction. Apparently I'm not interacting with Siobhan because I am a multicellular organism with advanced thought, and Siobhan is a paramecium. All right, so I respond with, so in order for an interaction to have occurred, both parties have to experience the same thing. Oh my God, then I've never interacted in my entire life. Siobhan, both parties have to willingly engage and influence the other for an interaction to occur. His desire to engage and influence was rejected. Ergo, no engagement or influence occurred. Not even the influence of conveying that she had rejected him. Okay. All right. I respond with, you're adding qualifiers. You're free to have your own idiosyncratic notion of interaction, but it's wrong. Assassinations are interaction. You see, this is an assassination where one person kills another person. It is an interaction, even though both parties don't experience the same thing. Wars are interactions. Rejection is an interaction. Okay, and she replies with, it's clear you suck at social interaction, evidenced by you having no definition of terms or social skills, nor social skills. Could you imagine interacting with this human being? Go learn some. We're done here. For your information, that's rejection. We had an interaction and no reciprocity occurred. Well, yeah, because we didn't have the same experience, right? I had the experience of complete frustration with a person that can only be called sentient in the most general terms. Right? My German Shepherd would not attempt to get away with shit like this. And yet this individual did, who calls herself a human sounding. Okay, she adds, because she's obviously not done, there are no qualifiers. He approached. He was rejected. She didn't approach. She wasn't rejected. Ergo, no interaction and no reciprocity of either. Okay. So unless the experience, both parties have the same experience, right? The same, I don't know how exactly the same experience, no interaction occurs. So apparently, grape, yeah, no interaction occurs. Harassment, no interaction occurs. What's the problem, eh? Just live in your subjectivity, ladies. Just turn it off. I mean, this is an incredible power. No interaction occurs unless you consent to it. When the Canadian Revenue Agency sends me a letter, I could just send them a message back. Hey, I reject this. Therefore, no financial interaction has occurred between us, and no expectations are legitimate. Right? A teacher gives you a bad grade, Siobhan. I reject this. I didn't have the same experience of grading you as you have of me. Therefore, no interaction occurred. Therefore, doesn't exist. Right? So, and then who gets to be the one, the prime experience upon which everything else is judged? So, if, for example, if you're having sex, Siobhan, you're having sex with a man, presuming that you are not some kind of gelatinous one-celled Star Trek-like monster, and you don't have an orgasm and he does. Have you not had sex? That means that no interaction occurred. We all know the answer to this, of course. She just wants to be right. She wants to be right so bad, she's willing to look like a complete and utter idiot to do so. And she's assuming that she's operating with all of the advantages on her side because she thinks I'm a man. It's really funny to watch these women go through this bullshit because they're operating with a set of tools that don't actually work. And when you show it to them in a situation where they never expected them to be deployed, you realize how freaking dumb they are. Shaming, whataboutism, turnabout. Okay? Like, what is this? Oh, you've made an argument that my logic is crap, so I'm going to simply say that the exact opposite, no you. What that has to have its own kind of logical, fallacy associated with it. Tell me in the comments below what that is. I think we're discovering fallacies that we're discovering some extremely strange fallacies here in this series. But what can I say? Because no debate took place here, right? I brought a brain. Siobhan brought her gonads. And since our experience of this wasn't equivalent, no interaction happened. All right, so that is yet another of my explorations. I hope you find it edifying. I hope you do. And you also enjoy yourself. Have a good evening, afternoon, second lunch, brunch, breakfast, whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing it. Have a lovely whatever. And thank you for your kind attention. Did an interaction occur? Who knows?